We'll call the meeting to order. Laura, please call the roll.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Ms. Jamison,
Present.
Mr. Ledniski,
Here.
Mr. Olvera,
Present.
Mr. Hurst,
Here.
Ms. Lucero, and Mr. Daniel.
Here.
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 4, presentation of a preliminary development agreement with Energy Systems Group to authorize a rate study, development services, and grant study for a sewer mining project.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you guys for having us today. Really excited to be here. My name is Canyon Payne. I'm an account executive for Energy Systems Group. With me today, I also have our strategic partner, Reuse Innovations. I have Randall here. Randall, you want to introduce yourself real quick at all? Just explain what you do.
My name is Randall Nelson. I'm with Reuse. We're an engineering, design, construction firm, and we construct wastewater treatment systems, but specifically membranes designed to take wastewater and turn it to drinking water. So I'm with Reuse.
So the reason we're here tonight and the purpose of this discussion is to talk a little bit about what Randall just brought up, and that is through what we're calling sewer mining. We understand that a little background on this, that the city's entered into an MOU with Infraheat Capital to develop a data center. Anytime data centers growth get brought up, we know that there's a lot of questions about infrastructure for the community, what's that going to be on the strain on the water, power, all those different things. And what we want to talk about tonight is what we think is a possible solution to help be a win-win for all parties, right? Something that can not tap into those community resources and still provide the growth that the city's doing here. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today, and that's the reason that we're here. We're getting introduced because we're looking to provide sustainable infrastructure to help support this project and still be able to provide revenue to the city, not tap into the drinking water for the community, and deliver revenue to the city, as well as to develop a plan for community growth and future growth there as well. Before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about who we are at Energy Systems Group and allow Reuse to give a little bit of background on them as well. So Energy Systems Group, we're over 30 years old. We have, done over 900 public infrastructure projects across the country, another 40 plus here in Texas. We have over 400 employees nationwide and have done over 4.5 billion infrastructure projects across the country, another 230 plus million in Texas there as well. And again, really what we do is deliver public and sustainable infrastructure projects that help make money or save money. We don't move forward with the project unless it makes financial or operational sense for the city. So that's just a little bit about us. I'm going to kick it over to Randall to talk about Reuse a little bit. You want to just real quick talk about else?
Yeah. So a little bit of a education, if you guys don't mind, and I'll actually open it up to the public. When you think of wastewater, what comes to mind? Can I pick on you?
Sure.
What do you think of when you think of wastewater? Sewage. You think dirty, icky, right? Wastewater treatment plant, what comes to mind? You hope so, right? So forever, the public, when they think of wastewater, is typically thinking of large, big conventional plants. They think odor. They think noise. They think eyesore, right? Well, we don't do those type of plants. What a lot of you have heard of, and you know very well, you're probably familiar with it, are membranes. If that word sounds unfamiliar, think of reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis is something that you see or use on a regular basis. If you've ever bought bottled water, 90% of the bottled water is purified through reverse osmosis. If you've ever been on a cruise ship, or if you've served in the military and the Navy, they take seawater and they process the seawater into drinking water with membranes. And then they take all the wastewater and they process that through membranes, right? So membranes have been around since the 1950s. But membranes are an advanced way of taking wastewater and getting all the pollutants out, getting all the viruses out, the bacteria out, and giving you back clean water. It is small footprint. It is clean. The site itself is clean. It is technologically advanced, and we do produce basically drinking water quality coming out of the backside. The state would classify it as a type 1 reclaimed water, meaning it is void of pathogens, bacteria, viruses, things of that nature, and almost no nutrients such as phosphorus and nitrogen. So what does that mean? It allows you to take this water and reuse it in ways that are beneficial to you, the community. That's why we call our team Reuse. We want to make sure that the water that is coming out of our treatment plant meets at least type 1, if not better. And our whole goal is to reuse water in a beneficial way. So in this case, what we're talking about, and I don't want to steal from thunder, but what we're talking about doing is not using potable water, groundwater, or water that you rely on for your homes. What we're talking about is tapping into the sewer line. Sounds kind of weird, I know, but tying into the sewer line that's existing, pulling wastewater out that normally would go to the city of Waco's wastewater treatment facility or whomever's, and then cleaning that up so that we can reuse that water. So we're taking a resource, or we're taking what other people would consider a waste, and we're turning it into a resource. So we're not taking groundwater, we're not taking fresh water, we're not going to deplete the supplies that you already have or are committed to. We're looking at something that everybody else considers a waste and turning it into something that has value. So that, in essence, is what the plan revolves around from the water supply side. And we're just happy to be here and be a part of it. And I'm free to answer any questions after the fact. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, so just as Randall said, that's our goal for this sewer mining project. And that's why this is important, why we know that this is important for the community, as the community is looking at this project and the data center very closely. And that's going to be our goal, is to do this project to not impact your drinking supply, not do anything that is going to affect the environment or anything like that. This is going to take what would be waste that is leaving the community and turning it into a resource, and a resource for the city as well, to generate revenue for, to plan for future growth, all those different things. Randall just kind of talked about this already. This is how we're able to do it, is through your technology and through this membrane technology, to be able to turn this wastewater into type 1 reclaimed water. And there's so many different things that you can do with that outside of providing the water necessary for the data center, for the cooling needs and the water needs. You can use this for several other industrial needs as well. And this is going to be something that the city can benefit from also. Outside of that, the other aspect to this project is funding, right? Now, we're not a financial advisor or anything, but one of the things that we do is help facilitate the finance and funding of these projects, and that looks like a lot of different things. One of the ways that we do that is through different grants, incentives, low interest loans, 0% interest loans, debt forgiveness. There's all kinds of things that the city can take advantage of with these types of systems, especially with the reuse component, that will basically help reduce the cost of these projects, right? And that we can help the city take advantage of. There's over 20 plus programs across the country as far as grants, low interest loans, all those different things. that we can help the city take advantage of. We have very deep expertise in these different programs as well. Us with our partners have, over 20 years of experience helping get some of this funding. We have about an 80% success rate with these different grants, and have been able to get about $600 million since 2021 in infrastructure projects. It's full turnkey service, so that's grant writing, that's the application process, the project management of it, as well as the compliance piece, all those different things to help make sure that we can help get this funding and reduce that overall cost of the project. So again, this is a very, complex, large project. Where do you start? It's a big elephant. You have to take one bite at a time, right? So what we're here to talk about is the project development piece of this. Again, full transparency, not going to be able to answer a ton of questions right now because we're still developing what this is going to look like, right? This is just kind of the initial concept. But where we start is what's called the project development agreement. It's really a low-risk evaluation for the city or the entity that's involved who wants to basically sign the PDA to evaluate what this project is going to look like. And basically what it is we do this work, all the work necessary for the TCEQ, the compliance piece, to find the grants, to find the funding, to develop the project itself, and we do that at risk. And basically the only cost that's associated with this is basically for our time. We don't make any money off this whatsoever. That's a break fee that's involved, that where if this project doesn't go forward, that's basically all you're owed at that time. But basically that allows the city to make a really informed decision before they decide to move forward with anything on what is this project going to look like, what are the revenue sources involved, what's the cost, where is this going to be located, how is this going to affect the community, environment, all those different things, right? We kind of have a three-step process to how we do this. The project development piece, this is where we're doing the permits, the TCEQ, doing the site plans, identifying the grants, and then putting together a business case, pro forma, to show how is this project going to be paid for, how is it going to pay for itself, and how is the community going to benefit from it. The next phase would be pre-construction services, where we're looking at the long lead time equipment. We're looking at the guaranteed revenue sources that we're going to be able to bring to the table, and then a guaranteed max price. And then the third step is implementation and ultimately construction. So tonight, that's really what we're here to do, is just kind of discuss and inform on what this looks like, what the potential plan and solution could be to solve the water issue for the data center and be able to provide that water to them. Initially, how we can help develop this project to ultimately serve in what we think is a solution where all parties are winners in this. So with that, I'll be happy to, me and Randall will answer any questions that you guys have if you want to discuss this.
I have a question, Randall. Usually, typically for a city this size, you mentioned small footprint. Usually for, typically a city this size, can you kind of give me an idea of what a small footprint means?
Sure. So we're looking at about 2 million gallons per day, and we're doing one for multiple other cities of that same size. The total size of the footprint is about 120 feet by about 75 feet.
Okay.
Now,
Size
so
of this building here, or something like that?
I'm sorry?
Size of the building here.
Smaller, yeah,
Right.
smaller than this building. So typically a conventional plant would be about 5 times larger than that.
Right.
One we're replacing for another municipality is 400 feet by 400 feet of the same size, and ours is less than 1/4 of that. In this case, it's actually going to have a covering, like a red iron building covering over it, so you wouldn't even notice that it's there. It would literally look like any other commercial type of structure, so there'd be no noise, no odor.
So that comes out to 9,375 square feet of footprint.
Yes, sir.
So,
Postage stamp.
huh?
Postage stamp
Is
in
that what it is?
comparison.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have a question of you, Randall. How long have you been in this business?
I've been in wastewater since 1978. Been with Reuse since 2011, and focusing just on these membranes since 2015.
So a lot of the concern of the public is the fact that we could run out of water.
Yes, sir.
So water, where does it go?
Well, if we're looking at a traditional system,
Not the system, where does water go? If
water
you-
always goes to a creek, a stream, or it goes in the ground, one of those
And
two.
therefore is able to be reused again and again and again. Does the earth lose water?
Well, the earth never loses water, always going to be in there in some form or fashion, whether liquid or gaseous or whatever.
So rainwater becomes stream water,
Mm-hmm.
and stream water evaporates into rainwater, and it just moves around.
That's true, but the really question is when you look at the hydrologic cycle, it's where's that water going? In Texas, we're losing it because it's not raining as much here. So we're in the decadal cycle right now, which is basically a 20-year cycle where we have extended droughts for 20 years, and then we get rain events, and then another 20 years. And you go back and historically, you can see that. But unfortunately, with all the people moving into Texas, as well as the rain is no longer falling, so it's not saturating into the ground. So our water supply, even though the water on the earth is still the same, the water supply here is dwindling. It's getting less and less because of the resources are dwindling. We're not getting as much, coming to us. And then the demand on the water supply is even greater. So it's getting harder and harder to get that water, to access that water. So I think this is critical to reuse as much as we can locally in every way that's possible, whether that's through irrigation, through industrial means, commercial means, any of those type of things where we can reuse that wastewater as a resource, I think is beneficial for the community.
Thank you.
Can you talk about the replacement? How often would we have to replace membranes and any of the material or equipment that would be in this plant?
Well, any type of a system is mechanical, just like your automobile. So everything over time has to be, maintained, repaired, replaced, et cetera, et cetera. The membranes themselves, we tell everybody to plan on, if you're budgeting like you should, plan on 10-year cycle life for those membranes. What we're seeing is, and not even anecdotally, but historically, we're seeing lifespans of around 12 to 18 years on the membranes. But we still encourage everybody to plan 10 years, right? So if you plan every 10 years, if you have the money budgeted for every 10 years and they last 18, you saved money. But there's also a 10-year warranty, a 5-year full warranty, 5-year prorated warranty. So you know at least for the first 5 that you're planning, that's already budgeted in the price. That'd be replaced for free. So all of these costs are in the operational guidelines that we give. So we look at repairs, we look at the maintenance, we look at the blowers, at the pumps, at all the valving, all the controls, and everything would be presented as an operational life of somewhere between 10 and 20 years, depending on the type of equipment. And we give you a replacement cost of what you should be budgeting annually to replace those during those life cycle events.
And then another question. You touched a little bit on odor. So
Mhm.
I know you said lack of odor, but can you touch on odor and as well maybe noise? What would that
Absolutely.
help?
Where does I love doing this. So where does the odor come from? Anybody? Come on, you all know where it comes from. It just don't.
Bacteria.
Where does the sewage come from? Okay, so it all starts right here, right? It's all the bacteria that's in our gut goes out, right? So this is an anaerobic process. It's non-oxygenated. When it hits that collection line and is going through the sewer, that same process is still going on. So all that process that starts here is continuing through the whole collection line. So when it reaches the treatment facility, you're going to have a lift station. And at that lift station is where all those gases that have been held inside that collection line want to vent out. But what we do along the way is we use different sections of the collection line typically, and we actually use enzymes to counter that. So we're combating that with enzymes, but then when it gets to the lift station, we have activated carbon filtration on there so that we don't have that gas, escaping. Once it leaves there by pump, it's going to go through a screening process, and that screening process is completely sealed, so it's not going to escape there. And then the liquid then goes into the treatment facility, but it goes actually below the water level. So we do everything we can to maintain that. Now, once it gets into the treatment plant, everything biologically changes, right? So when we add air, and we aggressively add air to it, we're changing the biology from an anaerobic process to an aerobic process. Well, how does that change things? Well, an anaerobic process, the bacteria produces that methane smell that you can get, right? Hydrogen sulfide gas. Excuse me. Once you add air to it, you're changing the biology to an aerobic bacteria. They use the ammonia, they break it into nitrates and nitrites, and then you have different biology that breaks that down even further. So the gas that's coming off of the treatment plant is nitrogen gas. That's what the aerobic bacteria produces, is nitrogen. Well, that's the majority of our air right now, right? So we don't smell nitrogen. Nitrogen doesn't have any odor, nitrogen gas in its form. Ammonia does, but nitrogen gas doesn't. So that's how we take care of the odor. As far as the noise, the noisiest part of a plant will be the blowers. That's what produces the most noise. We use tri-low blowers, which are the quietest on the market, and each of those blowers have a 3-inch sound attenuating foam encased around them, and at 50 feet they produce less than ambient noise. So I could take a meter and I could walk 50 feet away, and you're reading about 52 to 55 decibels, which my voice is around 75 decibels. I've been told it's louder than that by family members, but it's significantly less. So we've had tour groups who will come to our facility, stand right beside the blowers, and I've actually had operators who've had to put their hands on the blower just to make sure it was running. So they are very, very quiet.
Maybe you could touch on the visual piece of the housing you can do with the system that we're into.
Yeah, and I mean, further, I don't think we have some pictures we'll be happy to share. Most all of our systems are enclosed in a building. Some municipalities choose not to spend the money on that, but again, we'll put a red iron building over it. We have all kinds of facilities that look differently. Most of our facilities, if you drive by them, you don't even know that it's there. My favorite, got to be honest, is one that the design for all the equipment is to put it inside it's on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The equipment is to be housed in a little fishing shack with the nets and the oars and everything on it. So when people drive by it, they don't even know it's there. So it can be out of the way. Again, no noise, no odor, clean water. We do everything we can to make sure that from every aspect, aesthetically, phonetically, that it is the best system you could get.
Thank you.
What percentage, you mentioned grants, what percentage of the total cost, typically what could we expect, high, low, range is fine, but what percentage of the total cost do you anticipate could be covered by grants?
So one that we're really familiar with is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund through the Texas Water Development Board. That one, they will allow you to do up to $65 million worth of funding for that. So that could be low interest loans, which are 35 to 40% lower than the traditional bond market or anything like that. But they will also allow up to $10 million of debt forgiveness if you can meet certain criteria for that. So there's all different kinds of categories. Reuse is one of those big categories in which you can do that, which is basically you can get up to $10 million worth of 0% interest loan or debt forgiveness, which is basically a grant to go towards that. Then there's other things like the EDA disaster supplemental grant. That one, they're giving $2 to $20 million for wastewater projects. The max that we're seeing is about $2 to $3 million. But that's what we'll do. We'll help build that capital stack for you guys to show how this whole thing will work and all the different funding sources to help pay for this project and make it financial feasible for you guys to take on. So.
kind of initial investment, I know that you don't have the time allotted already, so you can't say it's gonna cost this much, but what kind of range are we looking at spending to get the initial assessment?
So I actually do know that, so that the break fee that we're talking about for the development is $200,000. But again, you guys are not on the hook for that. Basically, we do this work at risk to perform this. And the only time that the entity who signs that agreement would have to pay that is if the project doesn't ultimately move forward. So we're really incentivized too to help find those different grants, those different incentives, all these different things to make sure that this project is financially easy.
Yeah, Brenda's been on the conference calls, you probably don't have any questions.
It's been very helpful to me.
Yeah. Well, I know, I saw on one of your slides, you mentioned touching Waco's. Can you explain to them some of the options that, because we're in negotiation with Waco, can you give them an update of where we are, with the information that Waco requested, and how much of that you collected? To give people an idea of the iterative process that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, a lot of this is pretty fluid at the moment, right? But we've had several conversations with Waco. Right now, we're talking about intercepting from one of their sewer lines. They've looked at us, they've looked at reuse. They were pleased with the packet or the reuse plants, right? And they've sent us, several questions that they would like answered and all this to just get, further confirmation that this is the route that they want to go. And basically, we would, tie on to the TCQ permit and make things go, pretty quick. But we're also talking to people across the region. We're talking to Bellmead. We're talking to other cities around here in which we can take that wastewater that they're sending away, not using, and basically cleaning it up and being able to use for this purpose. So it is kind of a fluid situation. We're talking about Waco right now because they have a need there, capacity need there, but there's several other cities around this region who are interested in participating and could use the help as well.
So, if this was initiated because of the data center, if the data center deal doesn't work out for us, we choose not to or whatever, is it still beneficiary to do a reuse for Lacy Lakeview, or will that be part of the evaluation?
I think that'll be part of the evaluation, but initially I do still think it's, very positive for Lacy Lakeview, right? The amount of revenue that you can generate through one of these plants, that's basically what we're doing is we're monetizing public infrastructure, right? Which most people are taking as waste or just pure capital. We're finding ways to help pay for this and help prepare Lacy Lakeview for future growth and giving you guys the ability for future growth. So that's really the idea behind this in general, but obviously the data center is helping spur that and helping accelerate that because of what it's going to be able to do for the revenue that it's going to bring to the city as well.
We have discussed, several times about how we have a sewer problem.
Right.
And to tie on to your questions, even if Waco decides not to participate, it removes some substantial volume from the reused water available.
Absolutely.
But we still have that need for Lacy Lakeview to treat its own sewer because we have a line at capacity and Waco's line is at capacity.
Yeah. And the other people around the region are too. But Bellmead, all these other cities around here are having these issues. And honestly, this is across Texas, right? This is the reason the Texas Water Development Board is investing $20 billion into these programs over the next 20 years, because this is not something new for just Lacy Lakeview. This is everybody, right? So to answer your question, this is going to be beneficial for you guys regardless, and something that's going to need to be done. So we're getting ahead of that, and again, the data center is just kind of helping accelerate.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add to that. If you look at ways that it would benefit you financially, I can't speak to your situation specifically, but We've worked with a lot of other municipalities who feed their wastewater to a neighboring community, neighboring wastewater treatment facility. It has typically always been the case where they're charged per gallon, right, per thousand, whatever the case may be, but it's a per gallon rate. And when you have rain events, when you have water events, especially when it's heavy rains, you get infiltration into your collection line. And
know all
so
about
what you're
that.
seeing, yeah, so what you see is, if your normal flow, and I'm just gonna throw a number out there, if your normal flow is 100,000 gallons a day, during those rain events, what you see is that volume goes up to about 400,000 gallons a day, or 500,000 gallons a day, because all the water, it's not coming from the wastewater, it's not coming from what you're doing, but it's coming from all the water that's penetrating into that collection line and going out. Well, that's a rate that you have to pay to the neighboring municipality. Well, you're already, you know, if their operating line is X, they're charging you X plus, right? And then if you have all those extra gallons, it's X plus times a factor. If you have your own facility, you have a flat rate. So even when those events occur, your blowers are always running anyway, your permeate pumps are always running anyway, all those things are happening, so you don't have a spike in your utilities just because you have more water flowing in. You have a steady state operational expense across the board. So you're saving money. Not only are you not paying that X factor to them, that percentage of overhead to them, but you're also saving in during any of those peak water events so that you're not paying, you know, a surcharge, if you will, just because it rained. You're now, you know, saving that type of money. So that's one of the ways you can save.
It's an interesting thought, you know, I hadn't thought of it this way, but the membrane plant apparently, because what it's doing is extracting water molecules from the
Yes.
emulsion, I'm
That
sure
is-
there's a
that-
word for it.
Yes, we call it mixed liquor.
The soup.
I don't think it's mixed liquor you
Yeah.
typically want to get in and drink that. But,
But you get the point, since what you're doing is you're, you know, osmosing or sucking this
Mhm.
water through that membrane. Well, if you get extra water infiltrated, it's just gonna suck it out immediately. It's
Yeah.
not gonna have to sit there in the vat like the sewage would, where if that rainwater goes to a conventional plant, then it's gotta be treated just as if it was sewage.
right,
correct?
and it is an automated process. So the system knows when the flow starts coming in at a higher rate and it starts coming in on this side. On the back side, we just start pulling water out faster. So everything is on VFDs, variable frequency drives, and the system knows, okay, I've got more water coming in, you know, my flow rate is increasing, so on the back side, it just starts pulling water out faster. So from a mechanical standpoint, my permeate pumps may run typically at 25 hertz. As the water starts coming in faster, they go up to 30 hertz, and it comes in faster, they go up to 35 hertz, and it comes in faster, they come up to 40 hertz. So they just match the inflow, and then when that starts going down, then those permeate pumps start ramping down as well.
So, I mean, I really like this idea of selling rainwater, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, right?
Because that's really what we're talking about doing, sending rainwater down a pipe to a membrane plant and then
Uh-huh.
pulling that water out and then selling it as effluent.
Yes, absolutely.
Where before, we're paying for all that.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah, during rain events, you get extra.
Yeah, I talked to Kenyon about this just before the meeting. We estimate about $500,000 a year in savings for the city, plus having the plant paid for. I mean, did I understand that correctly? Is that possible?
Absolutely, and some of the, financial, mechanisms that we're looking at, they require, your savings or revenue to be equal to or greater than the investment itself. So we're looking at all those different options, but yeah, to answer your question, I mean, we're gonna present something that's financial feasible for you guys, that can be paid for. You'll be able to know the exact, year that you're cash flow positive, how many years it's gonna pay for itself, all that through this process that we're talking about. Through this project development agreement, we're gonna be able to come back to the council and show you guys exactly how this thing's gonna pay for itself.
Okay, and one thing that hasn't been discussed here is the operation of the plant.
Yeah.
Can you set forth our options on how, there's got to be a person who pulls the glass of water, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of different options. Again, even from the funding standpoint, there are options that include O&M that we can have in that. That looks a lot of different ways, either having that being outsourced or just having that in your payment, the cash to be able to maintain that, whether that's a failing pump or anything that. Or it could be, it's something that we have a discussion with Waco. Maybe that's something that they want to operate, maintain. There's going to be different options there. But again, going back to this, that's what we're going to be able to develop and show you guys through this, is how this is going to be paid for, how it's going to be built, and how it's going to be operated and maintained, and what's the cost of that as well.
Yeah, I think to add to that, you could hire your own operators if you wanted to. That's a labor cost, it's a set cost. There are plenty of public utilities that would be more than happy to come in and help with that. There are private utility companies who also would come in and do all of that. We have operators at Reuse, so through our partnership with A3, who's the manufacturer of the membranes, we have trained operators, so we could do it for a period of time. We wouldn't want to come in and step in and just take over the plant and stay there, because our operators are designed to go in and train other operators and train them until they're ready, and then we pull out and let them take it over. But there's a lot of different options. I think all of that can be addressed in the PDA as, option A, B, C, D, and what do those costs look like. So we'd be happy to share all that. We'll develop that through this PDA as to what those different options for operations are.
I got a couple more. So what happens when the system gets overrun, or can it get overrun?
We've never had one that's gotten overrun yet. I think my favorite example, we were performing a pilot study for an engineering firm in Pearland, Texas. And 2 weeks, and it's only a 60,000 gallon per day plant. This needs to be drilled home. It's a 60,000 gallon per day plant. So it's designed to handle 60, but TCEQ always makes us design into that to handle peak flows of at least 4 times that. So our system, on an average daily basis, would have handled 60. During peak events, it's expected it should handle at least 240,000 gallons a day. We set up this pilot in Pearland, and literally less than 2 weeks after we set it up, Hurricane Harvey hits. It was at one of the City of Pearland's wastewater treatment facilities. We were, for about 4 weeks straight, we were running 9 times design flow through that little plant. I mean, we were doing over 500,000 gallons a day through that little 60,000 gallon per day plant. And not one time did we exceed our BOD limits, our TSS limits, any of those limits. Now, in that time, you can't adequately treat the type of nitrogen that might be in the water, but it's a flood event, so there's not a whole lot of that there. Point is, it never got overwhelmed, and we handled 9 times flow through that. So every system we design is always designed at least with an understanding that it's going to meet at least 4Q on those type of events. But we also have the ability to handle up to 6Q during July 4th, Thanksgiving, all of those peak holidays. We can easily handle 6Q to pass through the system, and not just for a short window, a 2-hour, 3-hour window. If I need to, I can sustain a 6Q peak for 3, 4, 5 weeks.
Is there anything that needs to be done to be able to handle that? Does the operator need to change anything? It just goes? Yeah,
so the way the technology works is, Chuck, you kind of explained it pretty well. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, take that off record.
It's okay.
In essence, what we're doing is we have membranes that are submerged in the wastewater, and we put a vacuum on the membranes, and those membranes pull water out of the mixture. They don't let viruses through or bacteria through, anything else. They just pull water, right? Well, we design our membranes. Again, I'm just going to use numbers for you. If a membrane is able to handle 20 gallons per square foot of surface space a day, that's kind of the measure that we use. We design them so that they're only actually operating at about 5 gallons per square foot per day. So we operated at about 1/4 or 1/5 of their design capacity. That way, it actually allows us to, during those peak events, we can just, as I said, we can just increase the speed on our permeate pumps. We pull water out faster. But we go beyond that. If if a system requires, and again, I'm just gonna use it, 100 membrane modules, then we always add 20% more. So we put in 120 membrane modules, knowing that sometimes that peak event is going to be there that we have to be prepared for. But also, by doing that, it actually reduces the stress on the membranes, which is why we're able to get such a lot longer lifespan on those membranes, because we're not stressing them. So we design them so that we pull out at a slower rate so that we can hit those peak events, and then we actually add more membranes than we really have to, just because we think it's a good idea. Longevity outweighs everything else. When you can have a membrane that lasts 15 years instead of 10, you're saving money. So that's how we handle those peak events.
And related to that question, you know, he's talking about a storm event, you know, a hurricane-proof plant in Waco is a little easier than a hurricane-proof plant in Houston.
Right.
But you also have the issue of that, you know, there's sewage flowing into it. And if the plant, for whatever reason, is stopped or overwhelmed, is it possible to just let the inflow of sewage bypass and continue on in the existing sewer lines? Wouldn't that be theoretically possible?
You could, yes, absolutely.
So we do have a valve built in, so to speak.
Yes, but now, let's back, in that case, and not to be contradictory, but in that case, those lines are probably overwhelming themselves,
Correct.
right? So, I mean, I don't know how it's gonna be beneficial.
Well,
to
in a
do that,
storm
but-
event, but if it wasn't a storm event, if it was a mechanical issue
Right.
or some other interruption, theoretically, we would have that overflow.
Well, so that's a good question. So let's talk about the mechanical. Can you guys still hear me back there? I did say I'm pretty loud. Everything that we do, any process critical equipment is built in full redundancy in the plant. So if the plant requires 2 blowers, we always provide 3 built-in, pre-plumbed and pre-wired. If it requires 2 permeate pumps, we always put in 3. Full redundancy built in. And it's not necessarily because of those downtimes where you have to worry about replacing something or something broken. But for anybody who's an operator, I mean, if you're a mechanic, right, and I know this sounds stupid, but let me just visualize this with you. If you had a vehicle and it had 2 engines in it so that you could switch over from one engine to another, and so you never had any downtime, that's really what we're talking about, right? So everything is built in so that when there's an oil change, you know, and the blowers do have to have their oil changed, right? When you have to go in and do all the lubrication, or you have to change belts or hoses, any type of service that you have to do to those, you're not shutting the plant down for any reason. You're flipping a valve, turning this blower off while I service it, turn the other blower on, and the system never slows down. But it also works in the fact that, you know, if something happens to that piece of equipment and I have to change the loads in a permeate pump, well, I've got the backup already there. So it's designed for service, but it works for when there are repairs needed as well.
Give us a layman's description of membrane?
Sure. I'm going to use one everybody else hates, but I love. You have a chocolate shake, right? So let's think of the wastewater treatment plant as a big chocolate shake in there. All right, so if you had a straw and you dropped that straw down in there, that straw was closed on the bottom. But you had tens of thousands of microscopic openings in that straw, and those pores were only large enough for a water molecule to pass through. But they were too small for bacteria to make it through, or too small for, I'm just chocolate shake, milk fat to make it through, right? Or too big for large chain sugars to make it through. If you put a gentle suction on that straw, what's going to come out of that milkshake? Well, the material is a poly. So it's a blend of 5 different polymers. So there's a core, and the core, it's a plate. So it's a plate. You have a rigid core plate that has a honeycomb texture to it, or configuration to it. On the outside of that, on either side, there is a fiberglass material, and on the outside of that is a felt material. And then on the outside of that are going to be the membranes, which is just a blend of 5 different polymers. And it's in a configuration of a plate. And when we put a vacuum on the inner core then it literally just pulls the water through those layers and out.
That makes more sense.
Okay, excellent. You didn't like my chocolate shake and straw?
No.
Okay, well, you're joining the crowd. Everybody else doesn't like it
I
either.
didn't know that you thicker than straw.
The plate itself is only about, in total, did you bring it? Okay, she has an example of it. Now, it only has the core and it has the polymer outside. It doesn't have the two inner layers, the felt and the other, but that's what the membrane looks like, and you feel free to pass that around. Got a question back here?
This is what lasts 20 years and processes 2 million gallons of water a day?
Well, I'm gonna say I don't think the membrane itself will last 20 years.
It's at 18, right?
Well, right now, historically, they've been lasting between 12 and 18. So the oldest plants that we have in the United States are in Pennsylvania. Those were installed in early 2006. The membranes from those original plants were just replaced in late 24. So they lasted 18 years. Those are the only ones that have been replaced so far in the United States out of about 50 different systems up and down the eastern seaboard. In Texas, we've only been installing these for about 8 years in Texas. But so far, outside of operator error, we haven't replaced any type of membranes in Texas in 8 years. I had a question.
I have two quick questions.
Yes, sir.
One, what do you do with the sludge or the solids?
So every day, all that bacteria that we talk about, it's accumulating, it's growing faster and faster, right? So you have to waste out solids pretty much every single day. You don't have to, you can do it 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week if you want to. But that is basically run through a press, a centrifuge or a screw press. It is dried to a powder. It goes into a dumpster, and that is then hauled to the landfill. There are options where we have had clients take and blend. Now that is considered a Class B fertilizer, just so you know. And we've had people who want to take it to a Class A. You can do it, but it's going to go to the landfill. It's going to go out as a dry powder to the landfill.
And then, secondly, if for some reason this data plant's not built, or even if it is built, I mean, the amount of water that's gonna be processed through this, it's not potable water. What is it gonna be used for besides a data plant? I mean, you're not gonna be piping it to individual houses.
No, we're not.
Or water the yards, so I mean, what is it
That's
going
correct.
on that?
So part of the data center, and I could be speaking out of context if I am, just stop me, but part of the data center is a gas powered electrical generation facility, so they'll be producing their own electricity. And about 1.5 million gallons per day is necessary for that gas electrical generation facility. So that's where the majority of the water will be going. The rest of it will be going for cooling towers for the data center. If those weren't there, honestly, I don't see a need for a 2 million gallon per day plant at all. To Mayor, your idea, if that's not there, and you want to look at something for the city, obviously what you'd look at is more of what's realistic just for the city. What's realistic for our plant? Is that 15,000 gallons a day? Is it 50,000 gallons a day? Is it 200,000 gallons a day? I don't know that right now, but you wouldn't want to put a 2 million gallon per day plant in for something if you don't have a use for it. So
So basically, we're saying this is for the potentiality of a data center.
Now
That's strictly what that.
No.
that's my understanding. Anybody up here could correct me. I've not gotten into it,
No.
into the weeds of it.
We have to have the ability to treat our sewer because our line's full.
What are we gonna do with,
The question is, are we gonna build one just to handle our sewage, or are we going to step down and pick up additional sewage from the city of Waco? And that is a data center step. But
and
we,
I got that, but the extra, or if the data center is not to happen, what are we gonna do with the water that's being?
well, we could
or
sell
the
it,
excess water?
we can sell it to other industrial customers. You're already seeing announcements around the state, and Waco had one press release recently about a federal grant, $1 million federal grant to help with build out the infrastructure. And that's one of the things that excites me about this project is these data centers, by virtue of the tax base, they provide. They're bringing the pipe. They make possible, we could lay pipe to any of our industrial customers or any of Waco's industrial customers. And there will be, I think you're seeing Waco with just a start, with us just a start. In the next 10 years, you will see a build-out slowly of an effluent distribution system in McLennan County. And you're going to see that. Is it happening elsewhere?
It's everywhere. It's happening everywhere. Every municipality that we're working with is planning that. In fact, we have a lot of them that are sending it back to ball fields, parks, recreation facilities, common areas. So there's a lot of places you can use the water. No, we wouldn't want it going, I mean, it'd be too costly to try to send it to everybody's front yards, although it'd be nice if, in the perfect world, it'd be great if we could all get free water to irrigate with. But you can look at those other areas where do we use water that's potable water, we're paying for it, we're, drawing it out. Where could we use this water for some of those other purposes? And again, I think the ball fields, the athletic fields, the parks, those type of things that are, typically water dependent are some of the best ideas. That's as a start. Then grow from there as you see fit.
But it would cash flow if we built one just for Lacy Lakeview's flows. It would still cash flow even if we discharged the effluent into the river, which is what is happening to our effluent at the moment. And we do have, I've talked to one city manager in the region who, they have a plant like this, and they have effluent they would love to sell. They don't have the pipe to take it anywhere. And we are looking at taking the pipe to them to get their effluent as part of this project. So it's, you're seeing the beginnings of reuse of wastewater as an industrial resource to relieve that use. So it's a large, very large percentage of the water compared to residential use.
My question, Mayor, has to do with location, because you're talking about Belmead, Waco, Lacy Lakeview, and if it only can process 2 million gallons a day, then you're talking about a whole lot more from these different cities that are needing. So my question is, it's gonna have to be more than one to do all of these cities
It
you're
could
talking
be.
about. So what location are you thinking of?
We have to answer a lot of questions before we give you a specific answer. We're in those consultations with those other parties about what makes sense, what makes for them and their needs, and then what makes sense from with respect to the infrastructure to take the water where it needs to go. And we're exploring things now. We're talking about what's possible. We're not talking about a plan yet.
Yeah, and I think to answer your question too, I mean, that's what we're trying to do through this project development, right, is figure out what is the best location, what are our options here, and then our plan is to come back and show the council, the community, these are the proposed locations, and here's all the benefits of this, and all the putting them in these locations, or here's the multiple locations.
And explain to the scalability aspect, because
Can
it's.
I ask one more question that kind of connects with that? You said that when you tap into Waco's, you are going with their existing TCEQ permit. So when you go to these different locations and possibly put them in, once you have the plan, are you going to follow up and do new TCEQ permits?
So sewer mining, explain
Well,
the
with
difference in sewer mining.
any sewer mining project, TCEQ's limitation is this: whoever owns the collection line, in this case, we're talking about a 48-inch line that the city of Waco owns. It would be under their permit because they have a discharge permit into the river. So it's their collection line, their discharge permit. So the city would have to work with them in order to utilize that. And the state, we would apply for what we call a 210 beneficial reuse or a reclaimed water application. That is just an authorization to reuse that water. We can piggyback that onto their discharge permit. We don't have to go through a whole permitting process. It literally is just an adder, right? Like if you put a rider on your insurance, right? If I needed extra money for the, cover my jewelry. It's the same thing. It's just an adder onto their discharge permit. Now, If you switch from Waco to someone else, do they have their own collection lines and do they have their own discharge permit? That is part of that sewer mining. If you decide that the sewer mining doesn't work and you have to do your own thing with your own collection line, then we have to go to TCQ and get a new permit. So it's a completely different process. It's two different avenues trying to accomplish the same thing. But working with the city of Waco makes sense because it takes about 2, maybe 3 weeks to get that 210 authorization approved once TCQ has, got it. It takes a little bit of work to get it there and to make sure that all the forms are filled out correctly. But once they have it, about 2 to 3 weeks, they'll have an approval back. And at that point, you can start construction on the facility.
So if you piggyback off of Waco's to do the sewer mining, and then you come out and put in your facility that you're talking about, you don't have to go through any TCEQ permitting for your
That's correct.
structure?
That's correct.
They don't look at your structure?
Oh, they do. No, don't get me wrong. So they look at the construction. We still have to get a construction authorization, right? So we'd have to submit plans and specs to TCQ. They'd have to approve the construction of the facility or things of that nature. What I'm talking about is there's no discharge permit required. So, and that discharge permit used to take 12 to 15 months. Now it takes about 2.5 years to get a discharge permit. This is less than 30 days to get the authorization.
I'm just thinking about your operating, the procedure that you use, not so much construction, but the actual procedure of operations of how your device or how your plant works.
That's the operation question.
Yeah, that really
Yeah.
falls onto, so part of TCEQ requirements is this. If we're putting this in to draw out of the city of Waco's line, they have to be involved in that process some way. So if we go that route, just know that obviously there's going to be an agreement between, Lacy Lakeview and Waco will be involved in it. They may say, we want to operate it. They may say that, we don't know. But regardless, they have a financial responsibility or an obligation to oversee that plant as well. So it's not like if that goes forward, it's not like you're taking on the responsibility in full. You're sharing that with the city of Waco, and so all of their resources would come to bear as well for the maintenance of that plant and everything that's overseeing it. Because we can't do this without them in the sewer mining. You wouldn't have enough volume to do a data center and a gas plant. So if that's the route we're going, there's going to be some type of a joint venture. I'm not saying it's going to be a joint venture. I don't know. I'm not. But it would be some kind of cooperation between the cities.
We're very interested in partnering with as many of our neighbors as we can with win-win solutions. And in this case, the win-win is Waco has got their own capacity issues. They've got their own infrastructure issues, like all cities have. I'm not casting any aspersions here. They have the same kinds of issues we have, but we're looking for a cooperative solution. We can solve our line capacity issues, help Waco solve their line capacity issues, and bring tax base to the whole county, the school districts, and all of that will pay for all of it. Which a way for several entities which, won't technically get the property tax revenue, will actually get benefit from this in terms of savings and possibly even revenue in the case of purchase of effluent from cities that currently don't have a market. I hate to do this, but if my city attorney was here, he would not have let me go this far with questions directly from the audience, but I wanted to give you all an opportunity to know that it's an open process and it's at the beginning of the process. And we will be having additional meetings on these things as we come forward. So this is not a proposal. We will be coming back with a proposal once we have more details worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, honestly, we just wanted to be open and transparent about what we're doing with the city. And again, this is very preliminary at first, but we wanted to come and basically just to inform, answer questions, and we'll be coming back hopefully more informed with more information to share that as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, recess work session at 7 o'clock. Item 5, approve minutes from the city council meeting held on March 10th, 2026. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from city council meeting held on March 10th, 2026.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Laurie, please poll the council.
Ms. Lucero?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Ms. Jamison?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Ledniski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wilson?
Yes. Item 6, discussion and consideration of action to approve an agreement for continuing disclosure services with Hilltop Securities Incorporated. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the action to approve an agreement for continuing disclosure services with Hilltop Securities, Inc.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Laurie, could you give us a 5-second explanation or 10-second?
Amber can.
Amber can. There we go. Amber, please.
Okay, so Hilltop, this is a 5-year agreement, this is just a renewal. They're our financial advisor, they do our, reporting for our bonds.
So they're keeping us compliant with state and federal requirements for disclosures and
Yes.
performance on our current indebtedness.
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? Discussion? Laurie, please poll the council.
Ms. Jamison?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Ms. Lucero?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes?
Mr. Ledniski?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
And Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Item 7, discussion and consideration of an action to approve updating the investment committee's recommendations for investing City of Lacy Lakeview hotel occupancy tax funds in accordance with the city's investment policy.
I move to approve the action to approve updating the investment committee's recommendation of placing $1 million of the hotel occupancy tax funds into an 8-month CD at 4.00 APY with Cadence Bank.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
At what percentage is that?
4.00.
Okay.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
It's my understanding that these were not drawing anything, or barely.
Correct. They've been
That's
sitting.
why we are transferring.
We've had $2 million sitting for years in checking accounts. Correct. Okay. Any other questions or discussions? Laurie, please poll the council.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Ms. Jamison?
Yes.
Ms. Lucero?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes?
And Mr. Ledniski?
Yes.
Public comment, item 8. First person on the list is Gail Tice. Please, most of you know this, please come to the microphone and state your name and address so that the people at home, that we have it for the record.
Please speak loud enough where everybody can hear you.
Thank you.
Short. Hi, I'm Gail Tice. I live at 302 Avenue I. I'm basically just going to do a quick reminder that we're still working on our senior day. We are meeting on every first and third Wednesday, which I forgot to tell you last time. So I just want to simply remind, I have flyers in the back, so if you want to pick up one on the way out, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we will see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person on the list is Paul Ludke.
Paul Lukey, 502 North Oak Street. First, let me say I'm totally impressed you allowed all those questions and answers, because it's totally out of character. Anyway, back to the my agenda. I go back to last meeting. I complained about being so secretive and deceptive and not very forthcoming with information. You voted on these two guys for easement and right-of-way stuff. Nobody asked where the money was coming from. Nobody asked what they were for. But then you go to the sign thing, and right away we had somebody, well, where's the money coming from? Why didn't we ask that same question on the other thing? And why didn't we get a question about what are these guys for? What are they doing? I mean, we pretty much know, but at least you could have told us, but you don't tell us nothing. It's these two guys here tonight that allowed us to get involved. You didn't really. I mean, you did to an extent, but, you know.
I didn't have any adult supervision.
Exactly, exactly. And this is the kind of thing that the people want, but you don't do it. You keep everything behind the closed doors and everything. And I gotta wonder about this InfraKey thing. These people don't know anything about data centers. They haven't done one. They're only doing their research and whatever. And you're believing what they take. I gotta believe myself, if they looked at that site and thought it was a good idea for a data center, I think they're mistaken. They're putting it right in the middle of a bunch of people. The roads won't handle all the construction traffic. You're gonna have to rebuild the road. I don't know if anybody's talked to McLennan County about rebuilding the road. Or somehow, because those roads won't handle all the traffic. At that Ross meeting, we had a guy tell us exactly how much construction equipment is gonna be needed, because he does that thing for a living. And to subject them people to not only the data center, but the years of construction traffic up and down those roads, that's just ridiculous. I mean, you should not be doing this to those people. There was 500 acres available out on Lakeshore for 2 years. These people could have taken that property. You got open access on Lakeshore, you got the river right in your backyard. Why didn't they do that? Instead of putting this in right in the middle of a bunch of people that you're allowing happen. Don't do it, please.
Next speaker is Brian Waterhouse.
Hello, Brian Waterhouse, 4001 Myers Lane. Council members, Mr. Witten, want to let y'all know that I was one of the attendants in the Citizens Police Academy class that just graduated. Want to let y'all know that y'all should be very proud, extremely proud of the fine men and women that are at the police department. They provided their time, provided knowledge, insight into what goes on, the many things that we don't even know goes on. And it was very educational, very insightful, informative. Mr. Huff, he was there one evening, provided us with information about the fire department, let us put out some makeshift fires that he started there in the parking lot, under control. But the technology, I mean, I was really impressed with how far and how much Lacy Lakeview has for such a small little police department. And to know that the fine men and women that work in that department are work together, they're strong, they're united, and they take pride in what they do. Amanda, as well as Courtney, they had every class set up. They had all the materials prepared every night that we met, and everything went perfect. I mean, you couldn't have gotten or asked for a better set of people to set up and organize this. And each night we had different aspects of the police department, from dispatch to the investigator. We even had the DA, one of the DAs from Waco, come in and speak with us. Use of the drones, all sorts of things. And so, you know, I'm encouraging those whenever they have the next class coming up here in a couple of months. I'm encouraging those that would like to participate to sign up, because it's very, very educational, it's very informative, and your eyes will be open, including council members. I would encourage you, if you could, if it's not scheduled on a Tuesday night, because I did miss a couple of meetings because of it, but otherwise, I encourage people to really sign up and take their time to do it, because it is very beneficial, and it will make you more appreciative, be more appreciative of the men and women who are there to serve us. Thank you.
Next speaker, is it Jacob Perry?
Yes. So, Jacob Perry, 2144 McLaughlin. I would really just like everyone in the room to take a second to look at the data center issue away from the money aspect. Pretend there's no money. And look at the value that it brings to your community. Like the Tyson plant, for instance. We get chicken and HEB because of this plant, right? A data center. It's going to store maybe your likes on Facebook, but it already does that. We already have data centers that do that. Why do they need so much capacity? Well, if anyone has cared to look at AI, I grew up with it really, because I studied it in college, graduated in 2018 before the AI bubble really kind of took off, and it became a big thing. I'll tell you right now, we do not know how AI works. And what I mean by that is when I was studying it in college, we had a program where you just click and drag your database set, your neural network, and you plug and play, quite literally. That is how they create these AIs. It is plug and play. They do not know how they work. Anthropic is an AI company. They recently denied the government contract to do targeting in Israel and Iran for the wars and stuff because they said we want human oversight of the targets, human verification. Well, our federal government decided to say, no, whoa, 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 whoa. AI needs to be able to make the entire kill chain decision. Personally, I do not agree with that. I think many of us grew up with the popular film, The Terminator. It kind of sounds like quite the entrance, the doorway to walk through is exactly that, is that we set up the infrastructure ourselves that ultimately leads to our own control and demise. For anyone that has kids, I would like you to think about how you were raised, where you were raised, and say, hey, look, I came in this town, I grew up, there wasn't security cameras on every street corner, there wasn't AI, automated police cars, or automated drones, or robots, which...
30 seconds.
Amen. But I would just like everyone to think about what are the benefits of this AI data center without the money. And if you look at that, I think you will find that there's really not much that actually comes back to the community, because salespeople like these people here, I've been in that position, they will leave and they'll take their money back to Dallas or Austin or whatever, and you'll never see them again. But all the people here, you will see, you will live with, you will be in the grocery store with, and in 20 years, you will be kicking yourself in the butt, being like, man, I shouldn't have done that, look what they did with it.
Sarah Menarchik?
Next time I'm not
Another
following you, Jacob.
Another short one.
Sarah Menarchik, Lenart, Ross, Texas. I'm here to talk about the Energy Savings Group. Couple of red flags, couple of questions I have, and I'll go ahead and send you guys the questions. One, I'd like to know how you guys learned about this company. Did they come to you? Did you seek them out? Have you looked at what they've done? The other thing is a red flag for me, and that's the turnkey that he's talking about. I would highly recommend that the city hires an independent engineer or an architect to look over whatever program or whatever plan they put before you. Don't take it at face value. There's been some really negative things that I've heard researched about these companies, particularly the ESG, and I'm not sure if it's the same ESG. I'm trying to find detail on that. But don't take what they're saying at word value. Do a little due diligence on them. The fact that they are coming in and acting as a sole contractor is kind of scary. You guys need to make sure you have someone who's independently looking at what they do. The other thing I would give caution to is subchapter Z. Subchapter Z in your local government code 552 it may also be in 572, be aware that there is something that's called a miscellaneous provision. They can charge 10% extra on top of what they're telling you it will cost, and they will label it as miscellaneous provision. So be aware of that. The other thing, with them providing you the proposed plan, since they're the sole contractor, it sounds like you guys will not put that out to bid. I caution that. I would, again, be very careful about putting things out to bid so that you can see what's the best for the city. Because you guys are going to be the ones where the payments are going to have to come with the grants. You guys are going to have to pay it back in some place somehow. And I understand you're talking about getting money from selling the water. Again, I'm concerned about where these plants are going to be located. These other questions, I'm thankful, much like Paul was saying, I'm thankful that you guys allowed the questions because we do want transparency. We don't want to have to try to figure out what's going on by reading agendas. Thank you.
Next speaker, Carla Garcia.
My name is Carla Garcia, live at 2789 Ross Road. AI data centers cause pollution. One way is water pollution. We know that data centers use an enormous amount of water. If the water can be discharged, which at this point I think it's kind of up in the air, it will have chemical additives such as biocides, corrosion inhibitors, and heavy metals. Additionally, the AI data centers cause thermal water pollution by discharging hot water, which that disrupts the ecosystem. The plants and the fish and the invertebrates can't handle it. Construction and operation of AI data centers can cause high sediment value levels, which affects the local groundwater and contaminating water sources for all the surrounding areas. So our neighborhood will be subjected to higher water bills for contaminated water, which threatens our health and the health of our entire local ecosystem. This includes the products that our farmers and ranchers raise and send to the market, which causes a ripple effect. AI data centers do not belong in a neighborhood, they belong in industrial areas. There's also noise pollution. AI data centers operate 24/7, 365. The constant noise is known to be harmful to humans. Studies have shown that noises above 65 decibels are enough to cause an increase in stress and blood pressure, and none of us need that. High noise levels, especially at night, can cause sleep deprivation and decreased cognitive performance, which shows up in poor school or work performance. The elderly, children, shift workers, the less affluent, and people with chronic illnesses are the most likely to be impacted by noise pollution. And I think we are people we know, all of them fall into one of those categories. AI data centers do not belong in a neighborhood. They belong in industrial areas. They also cause air pollution. AI data centers are generally equipped with diesel-powered backup generators used in event of planned and unplanned power outages. When running, these generators release air pollutants known to damage human health, including carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, and particulate matter. The particulate matter is really important. These tiny inhalable particles can cause harm to our lungs, and according to the National Institute of Health, cause between 100 and 200,000 premature deaths each year. AI data centers do not belong in a neighborhood. They belong in industrial areas. I would hope that this city council listens to our voices and realizes that condemning me and my neighbors to constant noise, polluted air, and polluted water is morally wrong unethical, and will cause you to be on the wrong side of history. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker, Shauna Finn.
I swear that Paul and Sarah and I did not coordinate in what we're about to say, what I'm about to say, and I really enjoyed the deep discourse between the audience and,
Your address.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that. My name is Shauna Finn, and I live in the Waco ETJ.
Address?
You need the exact address?
Maybe address.
100 Fort Graham Circle. There you go. I would say at this point, I've been to many city council meetings around Waco, and I've seen pretty much how they proceed across the board. And I say this not to be combative, I just say this as informative of our rights as a community, the public, for the city council meetings here at Lacy Lakeview. But in every meeting I've been in attendance to, the same procedure has been followed where public comment on agenda items was not allowed until after the vote. With that being said, I'd like to address the council regarding the compliance with Texas House Bill 2840, which amended the Texas Opens Meeting Act. This is specifically the code 551.007, and it states, a governmental body shall allow each member of the public who desires to address the body regarding an item on an agenda for an open meeting of the body to address the body regarding the item at the meeting before or during the body's consideration of the item. And the key word here is consideration. We have yet to have public comment before the meetings or before the vote of an agenda item, and that's required by law. So, Mr. Olvera, I know last time we spoke about this, you mentioned that the presiding officer, Mayor Wilson, can make the call about public comments, and he can to a degree, but the House Bill 2840, what that actually means is that they can set the time limits for the speaker, they can do the sign-up procedures however they wish, and whether the comment occurs at the start of the meeting or before the agenda item is voted on. So the intent of that House bill is just to secure and ensure that the public has that opportunity to provide input before decisions are actually voted on. So all of this to say, I just ask that the council adjust their procedures to ensure that the public comment on agenda items are allowed before the meeting begins or before the action is taken on the agenda item. That's it.
Okay, that ends public comment. Nothing for the mayor's report. Item 10, council members' input. Anyone on the council have anything they'd like to share? With that, we're at item 11, adjourned at 19:23 hours.